Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered why so many people feel stuck, even when life seems fine? What if the very thing making you feel safe is silently holding you back? And what if the life you truly want is just beyond one invisible barrier? Over the years, I've noticed something striking. Most people live their lives inside what we call the comfort zone. But what is this so-called comfort zone? It's that space where everything feels familiar, predictable, and safe. It's where you never have to stretch too far, never have to take risks, and never need to face the unknown. And I get it, comfort feels good. There's a quiet security in routine. But here's what I've learned after decades of studying success and human potential. While your comfort zone might feel cozy, it's actually the biggest threat to your future. It's slowly killing your potential day after day without you even realizing it. Let me share something profound. Everything you truly want in life, the income, the relationships, the health, the purpose, the impact, it's all waiting for you outside your comfort zone. Isn't that interesting? The very place we try to avoid is the exact place where all our dreams are hiding. And that's no accident. You see, life doesn't reward comfort. Life rewards courage. It rewards those who are willing to walk into the unknown with boldness and faith. Growth doesn't happen when things stay the same. It happens when we challenge ourselves, when we move beyond the borders of what's familiar. I often ask this in my seminars. How many of you want your life to be better 5 years from now? And every hand shoots up. But then I ask the deeper question, what are you willing to change today to make that happen? That's when the room goes silent. You can't become the person you're meant to be by staying the person you are today. That's worth repeating. You cannot become what you need to be by remaining what you are. Most people know this in their heads, but they don't live it. They know they should stretch themselves, take that leap, meet new people, learn a new skill, start that business, write that book, or have that difficult conversation. But knowing and doing, those are two entirely different worlds. Let me tell you a story about my friend John. John worked at the same company for 15 years. He had a steady job, made decent money, and by all outward appearances, he was doing just fine. John was comfortable, but every time we caught up, he'd share his dream of starting his own business. Year after year, the story stayed the same. He had the ideas, he had the passion, but he also had a mortgage, car payments, and what he often called responsibilities. One day, I looked him in the eye and said, "John, your comfort zone is a beautiful prison. You've decorated it well, but it's still a prison." That sentence stayed with him. 6 months later, John finally took the leap. He didn't quit everything overnight. He started his business part-time while still holding on to his job. It wasn't easy. He gave up evenings, weekends, holidays. But he stayed committed. And you know what? Within 2 years, that business was thriving. He was able to leave his full-time job, and today he's earning nearly 3 times more than he did before. But even more important than the money, he's energized. He wakes up with purpose, with passion. He's alive again. So what changed? John didn't magically become more talented. He didn't stumble into luck or win the lottery. The only thing that shifted was his mindset. He made a decision. That growth mattered more than comfort. That his potential was worth pursuing, even if it meant facing fear and uncertainty head-on. Now maybe you're thinking, well, that's great for John, but my situation is different. And you're absolutely right. Your life, your challenges, your background, they're all uniquely yours. But the principles behind growth and success, those are universal. They don't bend just because life is complicated. Here's one of those timeless principles. The pain of staying the same must become greater than the pain of change before real action happens. Most people wait until life pushes them out of the comfort zone, through loss, through crisis, through some emotional or financial breakdown. But the question is, why wait? Why not choose growth before life forces it on you? One of the most incredible gifts we have as human beings is the power of choice. In any given moment, we can decide to walk a different path. You can choose to confront your fears. You can decide to develop new skills, build new relationships, commit to personal excellence instead of settling for mediocrity. Of course, these choices don't feel easy. They're rarely comfortable, and that's exactly why so many avoid them. Now picture this. You're standing at the very edge of your comfort zone. Imagine it like a circle drawn around you. Inside the circle is everything familiar. Your habits, your current income, the relationships you're used to, the identity you've grown into. But outside that circle, that's where your future lies. That's where your untapped potential waits. And the space between those two circles, that gap, is filled with uncertainty, fear, maybe even failure. But it's also filled with growth, with opportunity, and the real possibility of achieving something extraordinary. And the truth is, the quality of your life will ultimately come down to how often you're willing to cross that gap. Not just once, not just when things go wrong, but again and again. Let me share a truth I've observed over decades of working with people and studying growth. The size of your income almost never exceeds the size of your personal development. In other words, if you want to increase your income, you have to grow. If you want your influence to expand, you must grow. If you want to experience greater happiness, deeper fulfillment, or a stronger sense of purpose, you must grow. And that growth, as you've heard me say before, doesn't happen inside the comfort zone. Growth shows up when you're willing to be a little uncomfortable today for the promise of a better tomorrow. It's not always easy, but the discomfort of growth is far less painful than the long-term regret of standing still. Now, you might be thinking, but Jim, isn't there something to be said for stability and security? Absolutely. I'm not suggesting you throw caution to the wind or make reckless decisions. What I'm talking about is strategic discomfort. Choosing situations that stretch you intentionally, situations that align with your goals and move you closer to your vision. True security doesn't come from staying in the comfort zone. It comes from developing the ability to create value, solve problems, and adapt to whatever life throws your way. And those abilities only grow when you consistently push the edges of what you're comfortable with. Over the years, I've met thousands of people who spent decades locked inside their comfort zone, paralyzed by fear. And do you know what they all had in common? Eventually, the regret of not trying became more painful than any failure could have ever been. Don't let that become your story. Don't wait until the end of your life to realize that you lived far beneath your potential simply because you were afraid to be uncomfortable. Here's a truth that's guided me throughout my journey. For things to change, you must change. For life to get better, you must get better. And getting better will always require you to step outside what's easy, what's familiar, what's safe. Now, let's move from principle to practice. Because understanding these ideas is only the beginning. Transformation comes from applying them. So where do you start? Start small. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just begin by identifying one area where you've grown too comfortable, too complacent. It might be your physical health, your skill set in your career, or even your personal relationships. Pick one area. Then commit to taking just one small step outside that zone. If the thought of public speaking terrifies you, begin by speaking up more during meetings. If you've been ignoring your health, start with a 10-minute walk each day. If writing a book is your dream, commit to writing a single page daily. Remember, small steps, taken consistently, lead to massive change over time. And with every step, your comfort zone quietly expands, making the next step feel just a little easier. Here's the second key. Surround yourself with people who are committed to growth. You've probably heard me say this before. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If everyone around you is content with comfort, with mediocrity, with playing it safe, with settling for far less than they're truly capable of, guess what? You'll likely start doing the same. But if you choose to spend your time around people who are constantly learning, evolving, and pushing the edges of their own comfort zones, you'll find yourself inspired. Their growth will challenge you. Their courage will ignite yours. I remember speaking with a successful entrepreneur who told me something that stuck with me. He said, "Jim, I don't actually enjoy networking events or conferences. I'm naturally introverted, but I go anyway because the ideas and the connections I walk away with are worth every bit of the temporary discomfort." That's real wisdom. He understood something critical, that growth doesn't always feel good in the beginning. It often requires stepping into spaces that feel unnatural, awkward, or even intimidating. But the rewards, those moments of clarity, opportunity, and transformation, are almost always waiting on the other side of that discomfort. Here's the third key. Develop a growth mindset. Your beliefs about yourself and what you're capable of influence everything. If you believe your talents, intelligence, or potential are fixed, why would you challenge yourself? If you're convinced you can improve, what's the point of trying? But if you believe that your abilities can grow, that effort, practice, and persistence can expand your potential, then challenges become invitations, not obstacles. So how do you cultivate this kind of mindset? Start by noticing your internal dialogue. When something hard shows up, do you hear yourself saying, "I can't do this"? Or do you say, "I can't do this yet"? That tiny word, "yet," changes everything. It shifts your thinking from a dead end to a possibility. Also, reframe your understanding of failure. Inside your comfort zone, failure feels like something to avoid at all costs. But outside that zone, failure becomes information. It's feedback. It's part of the process that moves you forward. Every successful person I've met has failed, sometimes repeatedly, on the way to success. I often share a story about a pottery teacher who split his class into two groups. One group was told they'd be graded on the quantity of pots they produced. Just make as many as possible. The other group was told they'd be graded solely on the quality of one perfect pot. Which group do you think ended up making the highest quality pottery? Surprisingly, it was the quantity group. Why? Because they took action. They created pot after pot, learning from each flawed attempt. With every failure, their technique improved. Meanwhile, the quality group, so focused on perfection, spent most of their time planning, theorizing, hesitating. They produced very little. The lesson is simple but powerful. Growth comes from action, not analysis. And meaningful action nearly always takes place outside your comfort zone, which, yes, involves a few stumbles along the way. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, connect your growth to a greater purpose. When the discomfort you face is tied to something deeply meaningful, something that resonates with your values and vision, you gain strength. You find resilience. For example, if you're building a business, don't just focus on profit margins or revenue goals. Connect your journey to a higher purpose. Not just the goal, but the meaning behind the goal. If you're building a business, don't limit your focus to income projections or hitting the next milestone. Instead, connect your dream to the freedom it could bring your family. Think about the jobs it might create for others or the impact it could make by solving a real-world problem. Suddenly, the mission becomes bigger than you. And if you're on a journey to improve your health, don't just think about numbers on a scale or fitting into different clothes. Tie your goal to something greater. Maybe it's about having the strength and energy to play with your grandchildren, or setting a powerful example for your kids, or simply living long enough and well enough to fulfill your life's deeper calling. When you link your efforts to a meaningful why, everything shifts. I have to becomes I get to. Obligation turns into opportunity. Next, let's talk about the fifth principle, practice discomfort. Make it a habit, something you intentionally do each day. Choose something small, something that nudges you just slightly beyond your comfort zone. These micro moments of discomfort build your courage like a muscle. Just as physical exercise strengthens the body over time, these small acts of bravery strengthen your ability to face greater challenges in the future. I know a woman who used to be absolutely terrified of public speaking. Her heart would race. Her hands would tremble. Just the idea of speaking in front of others made her feel sick. But instead of avoiding it forever, she took a bold step. She joined a small, local Toastmasters group. Every week, she placed herself in a situation that made her uncomfortable. At first, she could barely get through her speeches. Her voice would crack, and she'd lose her place. But she kept showing up week after week, month after month. And little by little, something incredible happened. She improved. She grew. Today, that same woman is a highly paid keynote speaker who speaks confidently in front of thousands. The fear didn't completely vanish. She still gets nervous before big events, but she learned to act despite the fear. And that's the real key. You don't need to wait until fear disappears before stepping out of your comfort zone. You just need to build the habit of acting anyway. That brings us to the sixth principle: celebrate your courage. Too often, we only celebrate external wins, like promotions, achievements, or results. But what about the internal victories? What about the moments where you showed up with bravery? Did you finally have that difficult conversation you'd been avoiding? Celebrate your courage. Did you try something new and maybe it didn't work out? Celebrate your courage. Did you speak your mind when it would have been easier to stay quiet? That's courage. Celebrate it. When you take the time to acknowledge these moments, you're doing more than just giving yourself credit. You're reinforcing a powerful identity. You're telling yourself, this is who I am. I am someone who chooses growth over comfort. I am someone who embraces discomfort when it leads to something better. But here's the truth you need to hear. Your comfort zone doesn't give up easily. It's always there, trying to pull you back. That's its nature. The familiar feels safe. The known feels easy. And the moment you begin to stretch, to grow, to rise, you'll feel that gravitational pull back toward what you've always known. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline means doing what must be done even when you don't feel like it. It's moving forward when everything in you wants to step back. It's keeping your promise to yourself when no one else is watching. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It's the quiet force that carries you from goals to results, from intention to accomplishment. Without discipline, you might occasionally step outside your comfort zone, but the moment things get tough or unfamiliar, you'll retreat. Discipline is what helps you stay there long enough to adapt, to grow, and to experience the rewards that only exist on the other side of discomfort. And here's the beautiful part. What once felt unfamiliar eventually becomes your new normal. The skills you once feared learning, the environments that once felt foreign, the challenges that once intimidated you, they slowly become familiar. In time, they become part of your expanded comfort zone. But that raises the question, what happens after that? When your comfort zone grows, what's next? You find new edges. You search for the next boundary to challenge. Because real growth isn't about reaching one finish line. It's not a static destination. Growth is a never-ending journey, a process of becoming, not arriving. Now, I want you to picture something with me. Imagine that your comfort zone is like a small island in the middle of a vast ocean. On this island, you have what you need to survive. There's food, water, shelter. It's safe. It's familiar. It's predictable. But it's also limited, confined to what you've already known and done. Now imagine that scattered throughout that vast ocean are other islands, places rich with opportunity, growth, knowledge, impact. These are the islands where your potential is fully expressed, where your deepest dreams become possible. But to get to them, you have to leave your island behind. You have to sail into unknown waters. Some people never do. They live their entire lives on that one small island. They never risk the ocean, and in doing so, they never taste the depth and richness of what life could have been. Others? They occasionally glance toward the horizon. Maybe they put their feet in the water. Maybe they even set off for a moment. But the fear of what might go wrong, the storms, the waves, the uncertainty, keeps them anchored to the familiar. Then there are the few, and I hope you'll be among them, who choose differently. They build their boats. They map their course. And even with fears still in their hearts, they set sail. They face storms. They encounter setbacks. At times, they have to turn around, regroup, adjust their sails. But they don't give up. They keep going. And here's what they discover. Every time they venture out, they grow. They become stronger. They gain new skills. They develop confidence. What once felt dangerous becomes navigable. The unknown becomes known. And slowly, the world opens up to them in ways they could never have imagined. This is the real gift of stepping beyond your comfort zone. It's not just about what you gain externally. Though yes, the success, the opportunities, the achievements are real. The deeper reward is who you become through the process. It's about the transformation within. Let me share a study with you that truly fascinated me. Researchers have found something powerful when studying people reflecting on their lives. What stood out wasn't regret over the things they did, even the ones that didn't work out. It was the things they didn't do that haunted them. The missed opportunities. The chances they didn't take. The comfort zones they never dared to move beyond. Isn't that a sobering thought? That the real pain doesn't come from failure, but from the haunting echo of what could have been. Don't let that become your story. Don't reach the end of your life with a heart full of what ifs and if only. Here's another truth that hits even deeper. Your comfort zone doesn't just limit you. It limits every life your gifts could have touched. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're not only holding yourself back, you're holding back your potential to serve, to inspire, to make a difference. Think about that. Every time you stayed silent when you could have spoken up, every time you dismissed an idea before giving it a real shot, someone, somewhere, may have missed out on what only you could offer. The business you never launched, the book you never wrote, the solution you never built, the love you never gave, the cause you never stood up for. Your potential doesn't belong to you alone. It's a gift meant to be shared, and that gift gets diminished every time you stay where it feels safe. Now, let's talk about another reason people stay in their comfort zones. Many are simply waiting for the right time, waiting until they know more, waiting until they feel more confident, waiting until fear disappears. But here's the truth, there is no perfect time. You'll never feel fully ready. You'll never have all the knowledge or every single resource lined up perfectly. And the fear, it doesn't leave. It only loosens its grip when you confront it head on. The people who accomplish remarkable things aren't fearless. They just don't wait for the fear to vanish. They move forward with the fear. They act before they feel ready. They understand that waiting for perfect conditions is a trap, and that the only real moment you ever have is now. As I've traveled the world, speaking to people about their dreams and what holds them back, I've noticed a striking pattern. The longer someone stays within their comfort zone, the more intimidating everything outside of it begins to seem. They start seeing risks where there are none. They create reasons to stay put, excuses that sound logical but are rooted in fear. It's like a muscle that's never used. Over time, it weakens. The less you stretch, the harder it becomes to stretch. And the longer you stay in your comfort zone, the smaller it begins to feel. The world outside seems bigger, scarier, more out of reach. That's why it's so important to keep moving, even if it's one small step at a time. That's why it's so essential to make discomfort a regular part of your life. Not just any discomfort, but strategic discomfort. The kind that nudges you, stretches you, and moves you in the direction of your goals and dreams. This isn't about reckless risk-taking. It's about being intentional, choosing growth even when it's not comfortable. And start today. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait for motivation to magically appear. Because the truth is, motivation is unpredictable. It's here one day, gone the next. It's unreliable as a starting point. But there's a powerful shift that happens when you flip the script. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. When you take a step forward, especially when you don't feel like it, momentum starts to build. And that momentum fuels clarity, energy, and yes, eventually motivation. Here's a powerful question that many of the most successful people I've worked with have used to guide their decisions, particularly when facing something uncomfortable or uncertain. What would the future me want me to do right now? Take a moment to really think about that. Not the present you, the tired you, the afraid you, the doubtful you, but the future version of yourself. The one who will live with the consequences of today's decision. That version almost always wants you to choose growth over comfort. That future you understands that temporary discomfort is a small price to pay for long-term meaning, fulfillment, and success. So listen to that voice. Respect that future version of yourself by making the kind of choices today that you'll be proud of tomorrow. Now, let's be clear. Stepping outside your comfort zone doesn't mean you'll never feel fear again, or uncertainty, or self-doubt. Those emotions don't disappear just because you've decided to grow. They're part of what it means to be human. Even the most accomplished, confident people still face those emotions. The difference is they don't let those emotions control them. What sets successful people apart is what I call emotional fitness. The ability to feel fear, feel anxiety, feel self-doubt, and still take action. It's the discipline to move forward, not because the fear is gone, but because they've trained themselves to act in spite of it. And how do you build this emotional fitness? Through practice. Like building strength at the gym, it takes repetition. Every time you feel fear and take action anyway, you're training that muscle. Every time you feel doubt but refuse to give into it, you're getting stronger. Every time you walk into uncertainty and keep moving, you're developing the resilience that growth demands. At first, like those early gym sessions, it's uncomfortable. You might feel out of place. You may question if you belong there at all, but stay with it. Push through, because the discomfort doesn't necessarily fade, but your strength grows. And just like lifting heavier weights over time doesn't mean the weights get lighter, it means you got stronger. The same is true for your comfort zone. The challenges ahead may still be big, but you will have grown into someone capable of handling them. Let me share another powerful insight with you. Here's something I've observed time and time again. The people who consistently stretch beyond their comfort zones begin to develop a unique kind of strength. It's not flashy. It's not loud. It's a quiet confidence, a grounded assurance that no matter what life throws at them, they can figure it out. Not because they know everything, but because they've built trust in themselves. Trust in their ability to adapt, to learn, to get back up. This kind of confidence doesn't come from avoiding failure. It comes from walking through it and realizing you can still move forward. It's not about never making mistakes or never feeling uncertain. It's about knowing deep down that even if you stumble, even if things don't go according to plan, you have the resilience to rise again. And that kind of inner security is far more reliable than a fragile illusion of safety that comes from never taking any risks at all. And here's something else I've come to recognize. The most fulfilled people I've ever met aren't the ones who've arrived at some perfect destination. They're the ones who are actively engaged in the process of growth. They're on the journey. They're alive to the challenge, the adventure, and the self-discovery that comes from pushing their edges. Comfort may offer temporary ease, but it rarely leads to fulfillment. What truly fulfills us is growth. Real, personal, meaningful growth. Fulfillment comes from contributing, from making a difference, from discovering and sharing your gifts. But none of that happens inside the walls of what's familiar. All of that requires you to step into unknown territory. As we begin to wrap up our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge. Think about just one area of your life where you've been playing it too safe. Not 5, not 10, just one. Where have you allowed comfort to override possibility? Where have you been settling for less than what you're truly capable of? Where has fear been making your decisions for you? Once you've identified that area, make a commitment. Take one small, specific step within the next 24 hours. Not next week, not someday, but today or tomorrow. One deliberate action that moves you just a little beyond where you've been standing still. It doesn't have to be big or dramatic. Remember, the goal is to expand your comfort zone, not to explode it overnight. Small, consistent steps lead to real transformation over time. Maybe it's making that phone call you've been dreading. Maybe it's finally signing up for that class you've been researching for months. Maybe it's initiating the honest conversation you know you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off for far too long. Whatever it is, commit to it now. Choose a specific time. Write it down. And most importantly, follow through regardless of how you feel in the moment. Because here's what I know without a doubt. On the other side of that step is growth. On the other side of that discomfort is expansion. And on the other side of that fear, that's where the stronger, braver, more capable version of you is waiting. That version of you, the one willing to embrace discomfort in the name of purpose and possibility, is the one who will build an extraordinary life. Not just a comfortable life. Not just a safe, decent life. An extraordinary life. One filled with depth, meaning, and impact. And you know what? You deserve that. The world deserves that. The world needs your fully expressed gifts and talents. Not hidden away, but out in the open, making a difference. But let's be clear, it won't happen automatically. Growth doesn't arrive while you stay rooted in the same familiar patterns. It doesn't come to those who wait passively in place. It only becomes real when you decide, with full intention, to keep pushing beyond your comfort zone. Not just once, but over and over throughout the course of your life. Let me leave you with a thought that has guided so many before you. 20 years from now, it won't be the things you did that haunt you. It'll be the things you didn't do. The dreams you left untouched. The chances you never took. The steps you avoided out of fear. So throw off the lines. Sail away from the safe harbor. Catch the trade winds in your sails. Dare to move into uncharted waters. Because yes, your comfort zone is killing your potential, but only if you allow it, only if you choose to stay stuck. The choice, my friend, has always been yours, and it still is. Thank you for being here with me today, for giving your time and attention to something that matters. Now, go take that first bold step beyond the edges of your comfort zone. The extraordinary life you were born to live, it's waiting for you, right there on the other side. Just remember, for things to change, you must change. For life to get better, you must grow better. And that process begins with a single, conscious decision to move past what's easy and into what's possible. The most rewarding lives belong to those willing to do what most people never will. While the majority stay stuck in their comfort zones, clinging to safety, you don't have to follow that path. Your potential is far too valuable to let it go unused. Your gifts are too unique to remain hidden. Your voice, your ideas, your impact, they're too important to keep bottled up inside. So step out, reach out, speak out, stand out. The world is waiting, truly waiting, for the unique value that only you can offer. But that value only emerges when you decide, again and again, that growth matters more than comfort. That impact matters more than convenience. That your potential is worth more than your present limitations. Make that decision today, and then make it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the one after that. That's how extraordinary lives are built. Not by massive leaps, but by one small, uncomfortable step at a time. The comfort zone may look beautiful, but let's not forget, nothing meaningful ever grows there. So choose growth. Choose potential. Choose the life that's waiting to unfold within you. Because the future, your future, belongs to those brave enough to become more than they are today. Will you be one of them? I believe you will. And that belief isn't blind hope. It's grounded in the fact that you're still here. Right now, listening to these words, thinking deeply about who you are and who you could become. That tells me something powerful. You already value growth. You already know, even if quietly, that there's more inside you. You feel it. That gentle but persistent hunger in your soul. The hunger to expand, to contribute, to live fully. And that hunger? It's not here to torment you. It's here to guide you, to pull you forward, beyond the borders of what's comfortable and into the realm of what's possible. Yes, your comfort zone may be killing your potential, but only if you allow it to continue. And starting today, you can choose something different. You can choose growth over comfort, possibility over predictability, purpose over passivity. It won't always be easy, but I promise you, it will always be worth it. Wishing you strength, clarity, and courage. Stay healthy, stay inspired, and don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more content that supports your journey.